In this video, we're going to talk about validating the dialog component when the dialog component has repeating sections. Now, clearly this dialog here does not have any repeating sections, but you can see that it would be possible to, instead of prompting for just a single address for a particular person, we might want to prompt for multiple addresses. So if we go look at this completed dialog over here, you can see that for any particular person we can prompt for basically as many different addresses as we want. So this could, for example, be a work address, and this could be a vacation address, and this could be a shipping address, etc. So first let's quickly take a look at how we converted our first dialog into this dialog over here. So let's go back to this dialog, and you can see here that this dialog here does not have any repeating sections. So when we go to this dialog, you'll see that what we've done is we've taken the fields, the address fields, city, state, and zip. We've added two additional fields, address type and address. Then we've put all of those fields that are in the repeating section inside a container. Inside, you can see here, container begin. Then what we did was we went to the container, and we turned the container from its default subtype of none to a repeating section. Then we changed the number of rows to show in the repeating section to 3. We turned on has divider, and essentially that was all that was necessary to turn this simple dialog that we had in the initial videos into this much more complex dialog, where we have multiple rows for the addresses. And you can see here, if 3 addresses weren't enough, we could go there and keep on adding more addresses or removing addresses. So now let's focus on validation options. So there are some differences between the way data that's in a repeating section validates as opposed to the way data that's in the header or the non-repeating section of the dialog validates. So you can see here that if I go here and type in, say, XXX and then hit the submit button, we get validation errors for first name and last name, because those fields are required. Basically, you can see first name is required and last name is required, but there are no validation errors for any of the rows in the repeating section, even though we've defined in the repeating section over here, we've defined that address type is required, and we've defined that address is also required. And the reason that there were no errors there, even though for the dialog as a whole we've specified that we want to validate all fields, not just edited fields. This setting doesn't really make sense for rows in for fields in a repeating section. So if we go back now to our controls and look again now at the properties of this repeating section, you can see here that the repeating section has its own data validation policy. So you can see here that we are going to only validate dirty rows, in other words, rows that the user has actually edited, but we're going to validate all rows, all fields in each dirty row. So let's go back now and look at this again. So I'll go there and I'll type in, say, John, and then I'll go, say, to address, and I'll type in 123 Main Street, and then hit the submit button. So now what's happened is we validated this field even though it wasn't dirty. Then this row, the first row, was dirty because we made this change over there. Therefore the validation rule for this field kicked in, and you can see here that says address type is required and city is required. So if I go now and say that that is work and then hit submit, that validation rule gets eliminated now, but we're still left with that rule over there. And now if I go there and say home and then hit the submit button, now I'm getting my validation rules for this field and this field because this row is dirty, but now